The meaning of life is always, for me, my story ain't over until it ceases to exist. And that's my story. My story is a book. All these adventures and conversations I'm having with you, or with Kieran, or anybody else in my family, there's always a story to be told. We're on the page 27, page something, and I'm talking to you about this podcast. And this page has already been filled. It's been written with notes. And my meaning of life is, with this podcast, and I'm being a fan of it myself, the meaning of life is about connecting with people and understanding what life means to you. And you're still growing and developing, but for me right now, the meaning of life is what you make of it. How do you want to shape your story? How do you want to shape your life? How do you want to be the best person you can be in God's, holy world?
That's beautiful, bro.
God is life. God is eternal. God wants you to decide, how do you want to define life? I may give you all these principles, but you decide how you interpret them, how you go about it. I think that's the importance of meaning of life. I know it's a bit religious here and there.
Bro, that's beautiful. It's beautiful, man.
That's how I see it.
3, 2, 1. Hello. Welcome to another episode of the Jeoffrey Sarpong podcast. Oh my God, we're back. Today, I'm here with Tosin. Tosin, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm very, very good. Bro, this has been such a long time coming. I'm so happy you're here. I'm so happy we're doing this. But yeah, let's start this off right. As always, I asked the guest, how do we know each other? Just give us a quick description.
Okay. So, we met at uni, induction, and the first thing when I met you was, do you like Bleach? And then you were like, yeah, I know Bleach. Who's your favorite captain? And I said, Zaraki Kenpachi.
Yes.
And then everything hit off like that.
Literally, like, yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you're right. We met on our master's course, our creative writing master's course. I remember turning up. There's a bunch of people I did not know. And then obviously I saw you. I started talking to you. Talk about Bleach. My favorite captain was Kenpachi. We started talking about Kenpachi. We're like, what? That's crazy. You found another brother. Yeah. And then he told me Nigerian and everything. Yeah. And it was amazing. So yeah, ever since then, I've wanted to have you on this podcast. I have to say, you're my biggest fan. And I appreciate you so much. Honestly, man, you have no idea. You're my favorite poet. I've already said that, but we'll get on to all of that. But yeah, before we start, actually, I love the fact that you write poetry. We already spoke about that. Again, you're my favorite poet.
Thank you.
But what you do is really, really lovely, and I really appreciate from my heart is that you write poems and you send them to me. And when I'm having a bad day or I read them, I'm like, man, I gotta step my game up. But one thing you did recently, you sent me a poem recently, and you tagged it Jeff, the creative seeker, and it's about this podcast. That's why I want to start this episode by reading this. So, this is what you sent me. So it goes like this: with a mic in hand, his voice cuts clear. A thinker with vision, his mind without fear. From Ghana's streets to cosmic stars, he chases ambition, reaching afar. Like Kid Muscle, he laughs at life's fray, but beneath that joy, wisdom holds sway. Exploring paths, chasing what's right, he turns shadows to mirrors, reflecting light. A lover of anime, of brush and ink, crafting landscapes where thoughts can think. He creates to discover, to unfold the art of existence itself, the human heart. But still we ask, why? What is this life? What purpose drives? In Jeff's lens, our soul survives. Through his words, the answers shift, an eternal quest, the deepest rift. Now, bro, that's incredible.
Thank you.
That's insane. That's amazing. That's I can't, honestly. No one's ever wrote a poem for me and about me like that. So, I really appreciate that. I want to start off right, so thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
But enough about me, enough about this. I want to talk about you. So first, talk to me a little bit about yourself. Talk to me about your background, your upbringing, and just how you got to this point in time right now. Just give me a quick little description.
Okay, so my background, obviously.
First, yeah.
So I'm Nigerian, obviously. Gang up, obviously.
Africa.
But, yeah, I'm Nigerian. I'm a poet. I've been writing for a very, very long, long time.
Mhm.
So this goes even way back. So
Mhm.
I started writing back in 2004,
Mhm.
I want to say. So I wasn't really a big writer back then,
Mhm.
but it was only in the 2010s, 2011. That's when I got into writing seriously.
Mhm.
So, for example, Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, Othello, Macbeth,
Mhm.
like those ones were the ones that resonated with me, and that's what got me into this poetry journey. And then that's
Same, brother. Same.
2015
Mhm.
was when I decided on New Year's Day,
Mhm.
I made the dedication. I'm going to write poetry every day. Even if it's just a minor thing, that's what the goal is. And I've been writing it consistently for 9 years.
That's amazing. So you're saying Shakespeare, Othello, and all those people. Talk to me more about that. What was like the first Shakespeare thing? Why did it resonate with you? You're saying.
With Othello, right?
Mhm.
He was the first black character.
Mm.
Well, in literary circles, it's debated, right?
Mhm.
So the first more, like, he was the one character for me
Mhm.
as a disabled person that I resonated with because he was going through similar struggles, being a black person, trying to go through life and things.
Mhm.
When you're going in school, you're trying to stand out, you're trying to do things,
Yeah.
you're trying to be your own person, you're trying to figure things out. So
Mhm.
Othello for me was always like that personal diary entry for
Mhm.
me,
Mhm.
where it made me understand poetry, it made me understand literature on a deeper level, that words can mean something. And that's what I try to do with my poetry stuff.
Were you a big fan of literature in school? So primary school and high school. Did you really care about it?
When I was young, I used to read like storybooks and stuff. I
Mhm.
used to read like Carey's War, Of Mice and Men. Now, Of Mice and Men, that was something like when you're learning about history and black history and things like that.
Mhm.
Obviously, there's differences, but it made me start to appreciate literature and really start to dissect it more because I was just reading it for the fun with it. But I think what got me into it was reading manga.
Mhm.
That's what made me want to engage with literature and actually analyze it and think about it and the themes and the different cultures. So I think that's where we start. So
That's amazing. And I
yeah.
think like I'll go off that too. Like very similar experience for me too. You mentioned Shakespeare. You're the first person I've met that has that exact same like I guess like origin story
Hmm.
when it comes to literature. I had the same thing when I was like same thing of Mice and Men when I was in high school. I remember them teaching us of Mice and Men. You to learn about Lenny, you learn about the rabbit, you learn about like all of that. And like, I was the only one in my class that I was actually fascinated. And the same thing with Othello. Like remember they gave us the book to read, and I was just fascinated straight away. I was like, what? Shakespeare has a character who's black and he's going through this thing, and he wasn't just a good character; he was a complex character.
Yeah.
A complex character of his own thing, and Desdemona, and like his whole thing about like his love for her,
Yeah.
and all of that. Like that very early on got me straight into literature. So I love that we have that same experience, and I think even though we like ended up at the same place, I love that that's the original. It's really the same. But yeah, just go on a little bit more about that too, because I want to get more into your upbringing and how you were and how how you've grown up and stuff like that. What's some of the like highs and lows? You don't have to get too deep and too personal unless you want to. But what's some of the highs and lows and some of the struggles you had when you were growing up?
Okay, so we're going to talk about the highs first.
Mhm.
The highs for me is that I have a creative family. My mum was into a lot of books growing up. She grew up with people like Andrea Levy reading her books.
Mhm.
Like she introduced me to a lot of literature like Shakespeare again.
Mhm.
A lot of the books that she used to read, Noughts and Crosses and all those books from 2011 and stuff.
Mm.
Because she used to buy those books in Waterstones and stuff.
Oh, that's amazing.
So she used to just have a book in her hand, and I used to ask her questions like, "What
Mm.
are you reading, Mum?" And
Mhm.
then she'd be like, "Oh, I'm reading this book by this person," and that would just fascinate me. Also, she was a writer as well, so
Mm.
she used to have a book club with a couple of friends.
Mm.
They used to get together, and they used to just write short stories and stuff. And that what really got me into this writing stuff. Obviously, I did my own thing with my friends, but
Mhm.
my mum was sort of the drive
I love that.
for me that really wanted me to take this direction seriously and actually think about writing
Mm.
and black British culture and
Mm.
literature and poetry as a whole.
Mm.
Where's the gap in between those things? So it got me curious about it. And that's where the journey kind of spurred off,
Further
really.
from, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's fascinating, bro. That's actually fascinating because Yeah, because speaking for myself, my upbringing is very much not like that. Like I didn't have no one in my family really read that much. So when I was a kid, and I remember what got me into the actual literature was that this librarian. I'd go to school, and she would I remember start reading like chunks of books. When you're at that age where you read I used to read Skullduggery Present, Alex Rider, all those kind of teen books, and then she would give me a book a week to read. And after I go. I'll read the book, I'll come back, she'd be like, I'll read this book. And she would challenge me to keep reading. And that was such a good relationship because it made me interested in literature at that early age. And it was such a fascinating thing to see someone who had no reason to actually give me that opportunity, but she just kept going. She just kept I need to read more, I need to read more. And I think it was so helpful because I feel like if I hadn't started reading at that age, when I got a bit older and life started hitting, when the stress and the pain and all of that suffering starts coming, I would have had understood how to really handle that because I feel like I learned a lot of lessons in those books. Do you relate to that? Did you learn a lot of lessons about life early on from the books you read?
Yeah, definitely. We're going into the manga thing a little bit.
Of course.
So I would say Bleach was one of the few mangas that really got me into thinking about anime analytically. Obviously, you've got Dragon Ball and stuff, and Chainsaw Man and all that later on, but Bleach was the one I resonated with the most. Mostly because I was a fan of poetry at the time. And the poems really resonated with me a lot, especially about life, experience, going through the motions, So Bleach has always been a favorite. I mean, the anime episode's coming out today with the 1,000-Year Blood War. Check it out.
Definitely check it out. We should watch that.
Yeah, we definitely. So Bleach was one of the few mangas that really resonated with me deeply. It's actually influenced my poetry quite a lot, especially during the early days when I was just starting out and I was trying to figure out what style I wanted to make, what poems I wanted to do. I'm an all-rounder, so I try to write things that are meaningful, but also stuff I want to make. So that's how we go with that.
And I think also to me too, for me, poetry has been such a guiding light. Because I started a bit later. So when I was 18, I remember I've said this on the podcast before, but I remember there was this girl who would write poetry, and because she would write poetry, I was fascinated by it, and then she would tell me, encourage me to keep writing poetry myself, and then just that relationship that we had, just always urging me on, really helped me. But one thing I wanted to ask you too, and I think for the context, I always on this podcast want to show people that even people who do great things, which I think that's what you're doing, I think that's what you could continue to do, have done that, and they kind of strive and they come from a place of whether it's pain, whether it's suffering, whether it's the fact to overcome things in life, and able to put themselves together and find their identity. And I think that you found your identity pretty well in poetry and everything else that you talk about in your poems, which we're going to go more into depth later. But on that topic, what are some of the struggles early on that you had to overcome, and what has that been like?
So I started from an acting background, actually. So I started by doing drama classes back in 2009, so really, really long time ago. I wouldn't say early struggles. I would say figuring things out. Figuring out the identity, figuring out your niche. Because I didn't expect this acting career or this writing stuff to explode as it did. It was kind of just a hobby that I just did on the side. And then as I kept on doing it, people started noticing it a lot more. I wouldn't say there's a struggle. It was more like a build-up.
A build-up of self.
A build-up of things I was doing on my own. People noticed, and the stuff I kept on going to, clubs and stuff, they started to notice more.
Did you find it hard to find an identity in amongst your African upbringing and the culture of England? Because I write about that recently, right? Where I've grown, because I was African, I had a certain way of upbringing at home. But as I got older and moved into life in England, that was having to fit in. Was that kind of some of the struggles you had, or was it more different?
No.
Go on.
I wouldn't really say it was a struggle because I've got Nigerian grandparents who used to speak in Yoruba, but I never used to not understand, but I used to engage in it whenever I could. But my parents have always raised me, in England, teach me some Nigerian values with my grandparents and my family when I'm around them. So it was a blend of everything. even though I didn't understand the Yoruba language, I still, resonated with it, like Nigerian traditions.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
eating Nigerian food. When you respond to your grandparents, you be polite and stuff.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
respect your elders and things. So, it's just like bringing that kindness, right? So that was the background with that. It's a blend of both worlds, but it was mostly an English upbringing. Normal things, obviously with a disability like mine, obviously. You have to overcome the hurdles. Yeah, there were struggles here and there, but
What advice would you give people about finding their identity from what you've learned from your own journey?
for me personally, disability is a superpower. That's the one thing I would say for the people on the YouTube and stuff. Don't give up. Always have hope. Do the things you love and what you want to do, because that's how I found my stuff. With the writing and the acting, it kind of just came naturally as I became better. I mean, it all started by watching Scooby-Doo back in the 2000s, the Scooby-Doo show specifically, when I was 3 years old. And I said,
Talk to me. Talk to me about Scooby-Doo and like what's the beginning.
okay, so the Scooby-Doo thing. My parents grew up with it. So from 1968. So when the first episodes came out in the UK, they used to do this thing where they used to air the American shows before the American air date. So my mum grew up with that show, and then the stuff she used to watch, like the Hanna-Barbera stuff, the Tom and Jerry's, it kind of just, I got interested in it, and the Disney stuff as well. So I just loved it. So Goofy's my favorite character, obviously. Scooby-Doo was the one show where I decided to look into the voice actors, looking into the characters, the development. It wasn't actually made by Joseph Barbera and William Hanna. It was actually made by the late Joe Ruby and Ken Spears. They were the ones who wanted to make an Archie look-alike show on Scooby-Doo, and that's how Scooby-Doo came from, the Archies, really, or Archie comics, if you really want to be specific. So that's where it came from. You've got Don Messick, who voiced Scooby-Doo, obviously. Rest in peace. Died in 1997 in October when I was born. So, and he voiced Boo Boo Bear from Yogi Bear and all that stuff. You got Casey Kasem voicing Shaggy. You also voiced a few Transformers characters. You also was in Josie and the Pussycats 1971.
That's amazing. How do you know all these dates, bro? This is amazing.
When you go on Wikipedia and you're doing too much research with a lot of free time, you do all that stuff.
You do all the research and you figure it out.
Yep.
But before we move on to, because I do want to get into poetry, because that's like what we have most in common, but you mentioned acting and voice acting. So talk to me a little bit more about that. What was interest to you about those things? And obviously, I don't know if you've not switched, you still continue to do acting, but like, has the focus become poetry, or is it kind of like balancing those two now?
Good question. It's a bit of both. The voice acting thing just kind of came from an interest of watching Scooby-Doo and all that stuff. Scooby-Doo show, watching it on Boomerang. So that was the one drive that really inspired me a lot to do it. And then when I did acting classes, you're figuring things out, you're reading Shakespeare for the first time. That's where the voiceover stuff came from. And actually, fun fact, funny little story. So my first voice impression that I ever did when I watched on YouTube was Yogi Bear. Very first one.
Can you do it for us?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Hey, my name is Yogi Bear. I am smarter than the average bear, and I'm on the Jeoffrey Sarpong podcast.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That's amazing, bro. Thank you so much, man. But yeah, that's brilliant. I feel like and I know you still continue to do acting, and when you start doing your shows, I've already said I'm going to be right there front row, because to support my brother, because come on, bro, the journey, brother, the journey. Okay, cool. So let's get into it. Let's get right into it then. One of the things that we have in common, one of the things that we both love deeply is poetry. And like our ability to like, for me, poetry is like, man, that's like one half of my heart. Honestly, it's like the ability to take words and like phrases and like, like you were saying about Shakespeare and all these things. It's like learning how to be a person almost, you can like, your feelings are kind of like expressed from you. It's like you don't even like feel it until it's in time for inspiration, and then it's just like it all comes out of you at once. At least that's how it was for me. So talk to me about your experience about poetry, your introduction to poetry, and what you love so much about it.
Right. Poetry.
Go on.
When I got into it, Shakespeare, obviously, as I told you earlier, I think the poetry didn't come naturally because I was still reading Shakespeare a lot at that time. So I think it was more, the more I read into it, the more it encouraged me to write. So I remember last day of 2014, I was sitting on the sofa and I was thinking, okay, what do I want to do? How do I want to evolve this writing? Because I was doing a bit of writing stuff for my acting course at the time. So I was like, why can't I just do a bit of poetry? Expand my horizons a little bit. I love Shakespeare a lot, so why can we do that? And then I remember writing my first poem. It wasn't really that good, but it was the starting or the building blocks to how it came to be. And then later on, obviously, I took a year off, came back 2016, I was writing different things, and then after that, it kind of just bloomed into what it was today. I just wrote about anything or anything that I felt like I wanted to write, and that's how it happened.
So before we move on, so we can hold on to that. Before we move on, you mentioned Shakespeare. You're the first person, apart from me, that I've met that actually reads Shakespeare and actually likes Shakespeare.
Okay.
Because everyone else just remembers Shakespeare from the school time and they hate it.
Okay.
Talk to me about Shakespeare. What are some of your favorite Shakespeare's plays, and why do you like Shakespeare so much?
Okay. To be or not to be?
Ooh,
that is the question. There you go.
The strings of arrows of outrageous fortune. Sorry, go on.
So basically, with Shakespeare, I like it a lot. I think he was just a natural actor, really. He was the guy that resonated with me a lot and influenced a lot of my choices with my acting and writing. So it taught me how to sing. It taught me, not like how to sing, but how to conduct myself professionally. Especially when you're an actor, you're learning how to stage. You're learning about how the process is and how Shakespeare did his thing. And then it made me want to analyze his writing a bit more because he's talking about a lot of things. Identity, gender, love, especially
love, like literally like life
itself.
Depression, all these characters. Like, man, what is your favorite Shakespeare play? Or the one that you resonate with the most?
The one I resonated with most was Othello and Macbeth. Like those ones, iconic, classic characters. The struggle between family and independence, and Othello being a hero of his own story, only to, tragically pass away.
Yes.
We all know why, if you've read it.
Yes, exactly.
But he was the one that I was like, man, this guy's really cool.
Yeah.
I want to be like Othello. That's what I thought at like 12 years old, 13.
Without the ending, but yes.
without the ending, but the stuff he was...
The strangling of your love interest.
The stuff he was doing, though,
yes, absolutely,
really inspired me to actually pursue this poetry journey. And it really made me want to do it. I mean, yeah, that guy, Shakespeare's a god.
Yeah, literally, I'll go off that, man. Honestly, like, I think that he doesn't get enough credit, even though he's like, everyone knows him, everyone says his name. It's kind of gone, and I think this happens to every great artist. They'll go over high, and once they're gone, people start looking at their work as if, oh yeah, it's obvious. But what Shakespeare does, and like for me, my favorite one, to answer my own question, is Hamlet. Like his ability, like Hamlet's character, the Hamlet himself. Obviously, there's a whole kind of journey about his.
He's the archetype.
But literally, he's the archetype. Go off that.
Like, Hamlet is basically the protagonist, the archetype, sort of like the anti-hero. He's not really a villain. He's not really a hero. He's like neutral in his own space, doing what he thinks is right. And especially that ending. That ending, man. You've got so many questions.
Oh, no.
Especially that ending when Hamlet goes. And then it's just his servant left. And then it's like, what if Hamlet was a good guy? And he was actually treated with respect. Like, Hamlet was only doing what was best for his mother and his family. Like, he didn't like the uncle. He just wanted his mother to just date his father and be happy and just have a good family, man. All because of, like, royal corruption and everything. It's just like, there's so much to Hamlet. And I'm still learning even now. Like, it's even related to real life as well. Because when you look at it from Hamlet, and when you analyze the story, and when you analyze it to modern times, so many things like heartbreak, different families and dynamics. Like, there's so many things that Shakespeare was able to weave in, and you can relate to that. And especially when I read it, when I was trying to figure out my poetry, and when I was trying to figure out my own things, I was like, man, life is something, I tell you. Especially as a disabled artist myself, doing his own thing. You're trying to figure things out, and then trying to write your poetry and get it out to the world. It's a difficult thing.
100%. And like, honestly, like, you're right. I think Shakespeare is like, he's able to put his finger on life and human beings on a level I've never seen any artist able to do. Like, his ability to like really tell human stories. He has this incredible way. Yes, he has those like words and way of language he uses, but if you really pay attention, he's writing poetry as prose, and it's like, honestly, his ability to reflect the characters, understand human people, understand human emotion, like the breadth of it, the range of human emotion you can feel, and the range of human emotion you can touch on is actually incredible. So like, yeah, I absolutely love Shakespeare and his ability to like just take everything that he's doing and, you know, kind of build on it. And actually, speaking on that, I know we relate Shakespeare to poetry, so let's go more into poetry then. One thing I wanted to do, which I've never done on this podcast before, is that and I really want to, because I found someone actually who also loves poetry as much as I do, is to dissect and analyze some poems. So we have some poems here, both of you. I've asked you to pick some of your favorite poems, and like I've said, Tosin is my favorite poet. Like, honestly, him sending his poetry to me is my favorite. So now you also get to see it. So I've asked him to prepare beforehand some poems that he can share with us, and I want him to read it, and then after he reads it, I want to dissect it, ask him a couple questions about the influences, the thinking, the creative style, the inspiration, and then I'll also do the same thing, and then we can go back and forth on a couple of poems. Yeah. So first, I know you have one here. Just tell me the name, and then if you could read that for me, please.
Okay. So the first one is Wood are like shells. Here we go. I don't look disabled, but I am. But I am given silence. I will speak for you, even if the world drowns in the noise of its lies. If I'm given shadows, I will walk with you, even if the sun burns through every corner of the sky. The woods are like shells, empty yet whole. If I'm given stillness, I will move you, even if the wind forgets how to breathe. If I'm given darkness, I will shine for you, even if the stars are swallowed in the sea of grief. I don't look shattered, but the cracks run deep. If I'm given wings, I will fly for you, even if the heavens break apart from the forces of your stars. For the woods are like shells, fragile but strong. But if I'm given hope, I will dream for you, even if time itself forgets to go on. I don't look lost, but I wander far, in the woods that hold the truth of who we are.
Bravo. Thank you for that. First of all, thank you. That's incredible. So yeah, talk to me about that poem. I know it's very hard to ask a poet to talk about their own poetry because you just write it, you express it. But yeah, let's get deep into that. Let's talk about that. What inspired you to write that? What was the thinking behind that? And what did you make it feel when you wrote it?
Okay, so it's just an average day. You're sitting down. I was like, you know what? I'm going to read Bleach. Why not? I haven't read the manga in a while. I might as well read it because the anime's coming out. Next thing you know, I read the poem and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to emulate the style that Kubo does. And the experiment worked, and I just decided, let's just focus on a poem about disability, obviously. Mm-hmm. And then, like I say, with the wind, right? Mm-hmm. The skies, the air, the lungs. We're like, disabled people, trees, legs, branches, it's basically nature stuff, essentially. Mm-hmm. So using disability with nature, and then using that, and then thinking of the actual, the items and what is there and the ground. So that's where it came from.
And so obviously you have the inspiration of Kubo's style, and you're using that style, and then you're obviously doing the metaphor of nature and disability.
Yeah.
When the words come to you, is it, so your actual writing process, what is it like? So obviously there's an in-between you feeling and having that thoughts. But when you're writing it, is it like, do you have a draft and you go back and refine it? What's that like for you?
Spontaneous. My whole process is spontaneous. It can just happen. But for this podcast, I will say when I thought of the idea, I just wanted to write something. I just wanted to write a poem just to get it out, what I was thinking, because I was outside. I was in the park with Louis when I was with him that time. And then I was like, man, okay. I liked the environment, and it was a windy day. It was very cold. And I had this idea. I was like, what if I can do an idea with nature and disability? That could work. So that's how it happened.
So you don't have like, you don't write down lines and go back to it. It's just all spontaneous. And is it because you've written so many poems, you know what you want to say it? Because if you understand in your mind, you know, okay, cool, this is how it's going to go.
Because I've been doing it for a while, I used to write things down, but nowadays it's a bit of both. Sometimes I write things down. Other times it can be from interactions like with you or somebody or things that I'm doing at the time. The idea will just happen, and then it'll just be like, okay.
Anything can explode.
Anything can explode.
What? And is it like, you insist, is it like as it is your first draft, or do you have to refine it afterwards?
That's the idea.
The idea, like as it is, like when you first write it, boom, that's it.
That's it. We're done.
That's incredible, bro. That's incredible, bro. And like honestly, like like, because I'll talk about my experience too. And actually, before we move on, I want to read one thing I've written too, so we can kind of compare about. Because I think it's fascinating to see other poets writing style and like our writing technique, right? So I read mine. It's untitled. I wrote a title here, but I don't think this is the right title for this.
Sure.
So so it goes: smile on my face, tears of a sad cloud, as a realization sets in that I carry my family on my back now. Nights when I felt like I really was nobody. Feeling overwhelmed, should have told somebody. Some days feel like I need a factory reset, because I'm balancing poetic tendencies with an avaricious mindset. Drastically changing, so thank you for all your patience. I'm just in a different space, and I choose to embrace it. I wonder, if Andrew dream of electric sheep, then the gangsters dream of an endless deep. Those whose legal options just keep on dwindling. Those who can't tell the difference between strength and social condition. You see, I see the world burning, and I ain't amused. Religion's already been torn down. Spirituality is being misused. Because when the pastors prey on those who pray, that leaves the faithful confused. The whole world for the price of your soul. Tell me, which one of them would refuse? So that's, again, I'll go from mine, to answer my question. So for me, right, my style is that I write things down all the time. In my notes app, it's literally an idea will pop to me and I'll write it down. So this one started with so those are two different poems that I've kind of combined into one. Exactly. So the first one, Smile on My Face, Tears of a Sad Clown, that I had that in my notes for like a month. Just like I like that saying, because it to me it reflected something deep within me about the ability to kind of, you're facing something with you, like you're smiling on your face, you're outwardly just happy, but tears of a sad clown, because like the clown is someone who performs, and then later on it feels like they're feeling that pain or that kind of struggle hidden, and I kind of reflected that, not on that level, but I reflected that imagery in my mind, and the kind of the explanation for that came in. I carry my family on my back now, nights when I felt like it really was nobody. That's like those kind of like, developing that kind of idea. And then like on the second standard, one of the lines I really like is, I wonder if Andrew dream of electric sheep, that the gangster dream of an endless deep. To me, that represents like artificial life. Like, you live in an artificial life. And I feel like these gangsters and people that we're not around, they're living a life they don't want to live, but they have to live, And I feel like that's such a tragedy. That's why I compare it to that. The Andrew dream of electric sheep is like so that quote is actually from Blade Runner. It's like a book way back, and that's the title of the book. But it talks about superficiality and if Andrew's dream of electric sheep, then the gangster dream of an endless deep. And then I take that and I kind of build on that, those who legal options just keep on dwindling, and I talk about religion and spirituality. For me, like, a lot of my poems, I have some other ones, some more personal ones about love, but a lot of the more kind of like societal ones, they're me making a comment on society, but that's based on an idea that I had or something like that. Do you relate to that, or is it something different for you?
My poetry process is a lot different from yours.
Speak to me about that too.
Because I don't really follow a specific topic. It's just whatever I want to do at that time. Because it's like I said with the Wood with Shells one, it was more about what I saw outside and then just writing that. Because a lot of my poems don't relate to disability. Sometimes it talks about love. Sometimes things that I'm thinking about, or just an idea I've always wanted to put out for a long time or write. and then it just come out. And what you see and what I've sent you, that is it. Like, no changes, nothing else. Like this, like there's a few changes, like redrafts here and there, but it's not that much. Like, that's the idea. That's the raw
That's
thing.
the raw thing, yeah.
That's the whole poem in its entirety. And I want these poems to make people think, to make you think, and to make others think. What does that mean? Words are like shells. What does that even mean? There's a double meaning to that.
Go on, what's double meaning? From your perspective. I know, again, I'm going behind the scenes here. Poets usually don't like, because I know exactly what you mean. You want people to infer their own meaning.
Yeah.
But on this podcast, I want to ask you what your meaning is, so if we can understand if that came across. So what was your meaning when you said poetry?
My meaning was, for me personally, as a disabled person, words are like shells. It's all like a disabled person's journey. Their hurdles, what they have to go through, discrimination, and how do they represent themselves in this world? Because I went through similar things, not to the extent that a lot of people went, but I had those moments where I was feeling sad, or when I was feeling annoyed with something. You know, there's a lot of things I was going through. So I decided, let me convey those emotions and try and communicate it the best I can. So that was that.
That's beautiful, brother. That's so beautiful. And I think it's so important for that message. And that's why it's so important for poets to exist. And that's why I always say my favorite quote, my favorite saying is poetry will save the world. Because I think it's so true. The ability for people to communicate what they're feeling and their experience, their lived experience, is what we need in this world of where we're kind of being separated by other forces. If we can get past that and just hear people, and people will read that poem, and if they can understand that, they can understand your perspective a little bit more. Would you mind sharing another one, please?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think that's so important why you bring that up. I think it's so important for poets to really live in their truth, because there's a lot of fakery out there about people perceiving to be someone else, but that's because they think they can't be themselves. And I think poets are here to say, no, you can absolutely be yourself, and you are actually needed. Your perspective is actually needed. Yeah. So go on. What's the next one, please?
All right. Next one. Emotions first. This is a haiku that I did back in 2017, but I rewrote it recently. So I hope you enjoy. Emotions play with me like strings, tugging at the corners of my mind. Trees fall, bending to their fate. A loud crack, birds scatter across the sky, flying to nowhere. Emotions, they come first, before the birth of reason, before logic tears itself apart. Stop thinking, just feel. Let the flood of the thought break free. Minutes waste. Time chases. My skull holds my thoughts prisoner, but even my mind shatters. A broken tool, a piece of a puzzle that never fits. I act before I understand, bleeding from the wrist, like burning tar spilling over. Cars race by, my heart beats in seconds, not hours. Is it gone, broken, or not? Emotions control me. A clock striking midnight, each tick a reminder of the life I can't grasp. Visions dim, my logic dies, I fall, struggling to check. If I still feel, if I still think. My name is outside the embodiment, but all I know is pain. The emotions my only truth, wisdom slipping through my fingers. Farewell to the life I can't reclaim, as the waterfall rushes on, taking my thoughts with it.
Hold on to that. Okay, so questions.
Okay.
Again, same thing as before. What was the inspiration for that? Was it a love interest? Was it just you're thinking about love? Is it even love? What do you represent for you? What does that poem represent for you?
This poem, it means a few things. We always talk about mental health, the pandemic, and everything that's happening. So I kind of wanted to write a poem about mental health because everyone's talking about it. And I wanted to convey what's it like being in that mental health situation. A nervous breakdown, or when you're feeling sad, how do you feel? What is the mind racing? How does the thoughts go? So I wanted to convey those emotions and that process.
Did it help you overcome? Did it help you think through that idea about mental health and overcoming emotions once you wrote it?
I mean, I went through a lot of things when I was annoyed or when I was unsure about something. And I just decided, you know what, I might as well. I always write mental health poems all the time, but in different ways, obviously. So with this one, I wanted to focus on an old haiku talking about mental health, but from a modern lens per se. So I wanted to convey, how does a young person feel in a world that is so massive, so wide, and there's so many things you have to juggle in adult life? Obviously, that's a subjective opinion, but
I think that's true.
that is one of the things I wanted to explore.
So you can hold it to you, Klaus.
Yeah, sure.
What any answers have you gotten from that? Because that's a beautiful that's so true. You do feel isolated in this vast world. Through your writing your poetry, through living your own life, what advice would you give people on how to get through that?
To be honest, don't give up. I always say it's hard. We all go through hard things. I go through hard things. You go through hard things. Kieran goes through hard things. Just don't give up. Keep going. Keep praying to God. You know, God's always there. I know some people may not be religious, but for me personally, God's always there. He's always holding, on my shoulder, watching me, things like that. That's what keeps me going.
That's beautiful, brother. That's beautiful. And it's so fascinating too, because when I read that, when you showed it to me, I thought it was about love. I thought it was because again, I think that's so beautiful about poetry, how you can write it, but the person that receives it will receive it differently because of their own lived experience. So whatever you write, whatever you share with them, they're going to be like, actually, this is how I receive it. And so it's very rare that you see a poet come and be like, actually, this is what I mean, because now it puts a kind of a definitive meaning on the poem, which is why I think we poets don't like to do that, because it's like, no, have your own meaning, and that's more important to me. You think for yourself. But it's so fascinating, because I was reading, I was thinking about someone going through emotional turmoil about love and trying to find their way through that, and like how the emotions rush it in. But I think that's more about my lived experience right now than it is about the poems itself. So I think that's so interesting how things do that. Do you care about people's perception of your poems outside of your own true perception?
It depends. It really depends. Like, I remember when I first started it, I used to think about it a lot, because I used to perform my poetry when I was in college and stuff, and in university in Kingston, and in Roehampton a little bit. But after a while, as I got older and as I developed my style, I said, you know what? I need to love the stuff I want to create. Yeah, there's feedback. Yeah, there's criticism. And this is what I was saying to Kieran, and this is what I was saying to you. And we keep talking about this. I don't mind criticism if it's like fair, and you can say like, I don't like this aspect, fine. But if it's like, you just don't, you don't engage with it, then that's where it becomes, okay, fine, subjective opinion, but you don't need to tear someone down over it.
Exactly.
But with my poetry now, I know I'm going to send it to a few people. I know people are going to have feelings on it, but for me, it's more about the process and enjoying it at the moment.
It's a process of writing it and sharing it.
Yeah.
Did you find it difficult to share it? Because that's what I always struggled with at the beginning, which is once I wrote it, sharing it with someone else was like kind of giving them the power.
Oh, definitely. Especially earlier on when I was getting into it with a crowd of people. I remember when I was in Kingston College, sharing my poetry to 15, 12 people, and people are trying to perceive it. Very difficult. But it definitely built my confidence, because as I kept on doing it more and more, the teachers started to notice. And then, luckily, as I kept doing it, I remember my teacher, Carlos.
Shout
out Carlos as well. He basically came up to me and said, your poetry is really good. We want to do it for a performance. And then we've got Oh, What a Lovely War, which was basically a drama play that we did. And one of my poems, War Scars and the Meaning of War, poems that I wrote specifically for one of the show, it actually was shown to a lot of people. And I remember just performing it live on stage. My mum and my grandma were there. They were supporting it. And I just remember the reactions of the people. And it was like, wow, this poem is so good. Like, it makes you think about things. This is a World War I poem, obviously. You know, it's a very topical thing, history. But what I understood is that a lot of people were like, poetry's not about Shakespeare. It can be a whole different things. All my friends, they were into Shakespeare, but not deep, but into it. But when they heard it from me, when I voiced it, everybody was like, yeah, that's powerful. And everyone, I remember the audience, one of the members, they were thanking me and they were saying, oh, your poem's really good. You should definitely get this published and stuff like that. And I just remember feeling like, well, at least my poetry got somewhere.
Yeah.
I wasn't really thinking too deeply about it. As long as I did it, and it made me more confident. It made me want to experiment more and do things I wanted to do.
Okay, that's brilliant. Really well put. And actually, okay, to close, before I want you to run one more, but I'll also sacrifice a bit of myself to the poetry corner.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one is called Musings About a Muse. It goes like this. Ever been loved by a poet? Genuine connection is rare, so they often overdo it. Ever known a romance of his very own becoming? You'll find hidden notes, filled with passionate longing. Ever feel your soul be so beautifully observed? Comparisons to Helen of Troy, 'cause the least you deserve. I tell a girl like, baby, recite my poems back to me, while we sit beneath these stars and gaze into eternity. 'Cause beyond this tension, I feel there's love between you and me, but it's hidden behind these words, so it's something only I can see. A little birdie told me how to find love. It said, look up next time you're out in the meadow. Love will be the invisible bird that casts a quick shadow. Is the key that turns in the lock of your heart. Your once and lost will be cast apart. That's why you'll find what you had long forgotten. So why do you stay in a prison with the door so wide open? Because you think you must? Because you think of trust? Let it all be ashes to ashes and dust to dust. First off, I'm going to ask you, spin it back on you. What do you think that poem means and what did you get from it?
Okay. When I heard it before the recording, actually, the first thing I thought about was independence, family, trying to build that connection. You're trying to live up to that expectation, if you know what I mean. You're trying to live your adult life the way you want, but also trying to make sure that your family's safe and they're happy, and making sure that you're living your dreams and you're living, making sure your family's happy. It's more like you're the guardian, right? You're trying to make sure you're watching over your family and you can provide and you can give. So say if you get into marriage, you want to marry someone one day, you want to have that same love, that same environment for that family, so that family can have bigger connections, bigger opportunities, so your future family can have those things that you didn't have to go through. That's what I think.
That's so interesting. Bro, that's so interesting. And I feel bad even saying what the actual meaning was, because I thought that's such a beautiful way of interpreting it. So when I wrote this initially, I wrote it, like I said, it's a musing about a muse, about when I was going through like a time before of like turmoil, when I was like thinking a lot about love and all these things and romantic love, and you know how poets get, when you start feeling stuff, you start to want to express it. And so that was for me, the goal was like, okay, how do I express this feeling that I'm having internally and actually not like kind of just fester and just sit on it. And I think that's something I've learned as I've gone older, that like one of my ways of being now is that instead of just sitting on feelings and instead of not processing feelings, I choose to express them through poetry. And because I have to think about them and write them down and reflect on them and talk to my friends about them, it allows me to really kind of like look at it for what it is and like understand the feeling, understand what it is. I'm like, oh, cool, I understand now. Like, this is what I was going through. Oh, damn, okay, this is what I feel. And then when I perform it, because I've started doing recently, I kind of let it go and it kind of just like goes and it just gives it to the people. So that, to me, that's so beautiful. And finally, would you mind reading one more of your poems for me? And I love this because honestly, like to be able to sit there and talk about read poems back and forth to each other is something that I've not done before. But it's so beautiful, and I love this next one that's coming up.
All right. So this is my final one.
Go on.
It is called And So He Smiles. There is no fate for those who smile against the odds. No chains to bind the boy who refuses to bow. TJ the smiler. Born with cheeks round as the moon, a baby at 1, joy bubbling like the rivers of light. Can you hear his laughter? It was a language older than sorrow, a song sung in every corner of his soul. At age 6, he stood before the world, feet firm on dreams, eyes filled with fire. I will walk someday, he said. But his feet never touched the earth like the rest. Instead, they soared. The stars listened when no one else could, and he touched the skies. They thought unreachable. 13 brought a swagger, a charm that danced in the sunlight. The ladies turned their heads, but he never took his eyes off the road ahead. His smile was an anthem, one that echoed through the spaces, almost forgot to fill. And now, Jazz Blue, the poet, the teacher, the man with the words like a storm, crafted from love for the heritage he carries, for the black British roots that run deep, and for those who, like him, found strength in what others called weakness. Disability was never his anchor, it was his sail. They see a boy who never walked, but TJ was never meant to walk. He was meant to fly, to spread his joy like a shooting star and a light burning through the night. For what matters is not the ground beneath your feet, but the sky you touch with every smile, with every word that lifts another. God gave him the purpose, not in the steps he could take, but in the joy he shared, and the stars he ignited along the way.
Brother, no, honestly, that's incredible. Again, finally, two questions actually, it's twofold. First, tell me why you wrote that, and obviously there's reasons, and I think it's like you were saying, the topics and the themes, and like what you think people should take away, what you want people to take away from it. But also talk to me a little bit about why you think people should write poetry. Why you think writing poetry is so important, and why it's become so important to you back of that poem.
The reason why I wrote this was, again, I wanted to continue the theming of what I wanted to do. I think poetry is important because it's helped me. It's helped me a lot, especially with life and how I go about things. Now, if it weren't for Shakespeare, I mean, there's other things I was inspired by, like anime and things, but this one was what got me into writing. It's improved a lot of things, like even basic things like writing personal statements, CVs, like job applications that you need to do on a day-to-day basis to get through. Shakespeare's really, or poetry rather, really helped me with those things and made me understand these hard things that I struggled with. Obviously, you have, your family helping you, but these things really helped me to do things on my own and to actually apply life, and especially with my acting stuff too. Really helps you communicate, really conduct yourself professionally, and it always goes back to that. And the poem for me personally, I just wanted to write about my disability, where I was from, the ideas I was thinking about when I was young.
What is your favorite stanza in that poem? Like what comes out to you, what really speaks to you? I know it's hard, I know. And now, by the way, he doesn't know I'm asking these questions. I'm just asking these questions off the dome, so he's up to
my favorite one was TJ the Smiler, born with cheeks round as the moon. A baby at age 1, bubbles like the river of light. So, the Smiler, that one came from my parents and my grandmother, because I used to smile a lot when I was a baby. So, because I remember I have this, I don't know if you saw my WhatsApp photo, but it was actually me when I was really young and I had a smile on my face, and my mum just took a picture of just me smiling. So, that represents the smiler part, and the nickname persists even now. When I'm happy and I'm full with joy, round cheeks, that's when I was really, really young. So that's what it represents. It also represents the picture that my mum sent me.
And the other line in the stanza?
So the other one, I will walk someday. So disability, walking on crutches, you're working hard, and it reminded me of the time, because I wasn't really exposed to the disability community until much later in life. So like with WizKids, Greenhouse, all these organizations I didn't even know much about, through a friend that my mum and I used to see, and they used to recommend it to us. So I always used to grow up with, with the mindset of a normal family. You're going through life as normal. Obviously there's hurdles, but that's what I grew up with. I didn't know much about disability communities or poets and things until much later in life, where I started researching it myself, and I started to have an understanding of, a lot of disabled people go through a lot. Obviously I went through that, but not as bad as other people, like activists and everybody went. So that's what it means with the poem, really, where I was from, really.
That's beautiful, and thank you so much for sharing that. That's
You're
really,
welcome.
really powerful. I think finally on that topic, what do you think everyone has the potential to write a poem? Do you think they should? And what does the phrase "poetry save the world" mean to you?
Poetry can save the world. Let's answer that question.
Go on.
It can. The reason why I say that is because it's changed my life. If I wasn't exposed to Shakespeare, I wouldn't have become the person that I am. Like, straight up truth. Not from a life perspective, but engaged with writing. Also from a personal level, the friends that I've made in the last years, like a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now, I made a lot of friends. I made friends with Louis in my undergrad, with his brother as well, with the same interests. I wouldn't have met you guys. Kieran and you, man. You guys, man. All this stuff connected this together, because all this writing, all these conversations about One Piece and all this, it wouldn't have happened if I didn't take that plunge of poetry at all. And I'm so grateful for this career, because I wouldn't have been able to do most of these things. And I wasn't even expecting this to go this far. Like, that's how deep it is. Like, I always say to my friends, like, oh, and when you ask me these questions, I'm like, yeah, it was just a one-off thing. And I generally mean that. I wasn't expecting to go this far, because I was going to take a different career, like in IT, with computers and that kind of thing. And then this thing kind of spun off
On its own thing.
on its own thing and its community, yeah.
Thank you. And like, to answer my own question, why I think poetry saved the world, like, I love that phrase. I kind of like been using that for a couple of months now, and 100% agree with you, and I relate so much to what you said. Obviously, yes, the opportunities it allows you to do. Like, I didn't think poetry would go that far either. I just wrote it once to just impress a girl, and then I just kept writing it because it helped me get through difficult times in life, helped me understand more about myself. And I think that, to me, that was so important to me, because maybe because of the environment that I grew up in, understanding myself became paramount. It became like, if I understand myself, it helped me to understand the world around me. And like, I'm still on that journey, and like you've said, like, this podcast is the same thing. I'm trying to understand life, I'm trying to understand people and their purpose, and like trying to develop that. And that all started from poetry. That was the first seed of it, first seed of understanding that, first seed of expressing that. And like, you know, like you said, you can meet new people. I met Kieran, I met you, I met so many other people just from the poetry alone, you know. And like, you come into their world, they can show you about their poems, and you know, I feel like that's a window into your soul. You know, it's like, don't ask me about myself, don't ask me about my life, just read my poetry. If you read my poetry, you have way more of an introduction to who I am, to what I present, than I could even tell you.
It's the exploration of life. That's what poetry is. Because you got to think about it like this. Poetry is basically life itself. It's an extension of you. One part of you that's hidden away, right? Like, if it weren't for that, where would we humans, how would we express? It even goes back to like religion and things like that. With Adam and Eve, and the whole thing with like the rib cage, the tree of knowledge, you know, and the apple, and all that stuff. Poetry goes back even way far. Like, we're taken from religion like Adam and Eve and things like that. That's where life started, man. That's where Shakespeare got his ideas. Like, if we're going on a physical, you know, like a physical, philosophical level, it all comes, everything in life, in general, comes from poetry to some capacity. Whether it's, you know, you're walking outside, or you're taking a breath, or you're brushing your teeth, you're getting ready for something. Poetry is like a storybook, man. The pages will keep on going until you cease to exist. It's your own story. You're your own storybook. No matter how many pages there are, it could be 100. If you live 100, there'll be 100 pages. If you're living 120, it's 120 pages. If you're 80, then it's 80 pages of that storybook. It shows you the legacy of your story and where you've come and how you've developed as a person. So life, to me, or poetry, is like a storybook. To me, anyway.
Beautiful. Bro, there's nothing more I can add to that. That was a beautiful way to end that section about poetry. You know, like, you're 100% right. I'm never going to try to add to that. One of the other things that we've also really both have much in common is anime and manga.
Okay.
So moving from poetry now to anime and manga, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your introduction, first off, to anime. What was your introduction to anime? What was the thing that got you into anime in the beginning?
Okay, anime now.
Yes.
We're going deep in this.
Anime, yes.
All right, so technically, my first anime, right, that I got exposed to was Dragon Ball. Rest in peace, Akira Toriyama. One of my biggest inspirations. Really got me into it. Remember watching it with my brother Tosin and my cousins. All my friends were into Dragon Ball, so you couldn't escape that Dragon Ball hype back in the 2000s. You couldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
You couldn't. But my first anime, I remember. I don't know if you remember the program. Milkshake. The
Yes.
UK,
UK one. Yeah.
the UK one.
Yeah.
There was this teenage preteen one called Shake. And the first one that they aired was the Blade 2000s anime. And that was the first anime I've watched. The first one that I really got engaged into it.
Do you remember what you thought when you first saw it?
I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Bro, you got Tyson, right?
Yeah.
With the Dragoon. I was like, man, I want to be like him.
Yeah.
And then all my friends used to be like, oh, I want to be like Kai. I want to be like Ray. I want to be like Max. I remember when I was growing up, my parents used to buy me the Blade. And the first Blade I got was the Dragoon Blade of the Tyson main character, because I like Tyson so much. I remember my brother had it was the Shark Blade. I can't even remember. It was from one of the animes anyway. And then my cousin, he had the Drizzle. No, not Drizzle. Drigger. So he had those blades. So we used to collect them. We used to play Blade matches with our friends and stuff. And I had a friend named Brigham. Shout out to Brigham too. He was a big fan of Blade as well. So we used to play Blade all the time. We watched the anime. When it was so brand new, we used to wait months for the episodes to come out. Like, I remember watching, it was from 2000 until 2002.
I can imagine, bro.
So imagine waiting 2 years for these episodes to come out compared to streaming services now.
Reminds me of Attack on Titan, but yeah.
So I followed Blade until its end. I watched a bit of the second series. I don't really remember much of it. But I do remember in 2004, 2003, I watched Blade G Revolution. It was the final one that came out. I remember watching it consistently on the TV back in the day. I remember watching the final episode as it came out. And I just remember feeling like, man, it's over. Like, my brain was like, well, is it done? No. It's the same with, like, Dragon Ball, when you see, like, the Majin Buu saga. Before Super, right? So you're just like, yeah, Goku's journey's over. Like, so that was my introduction to anime.
That's a bit
in its entirety with Blade. That's where it started.
Okay, I'll go off that. And we will get more into anime. But yeah, I'll sort of speak for answer my question first. So my introduction into anime, you'll know about this anime. It's Ultimate Muscle. So I remember, just like you, on Kicks. Kicks was the channel that I used to watch a lot when I was a kid. And I remember one time they had this anime pop up, and like you know the beginning. To outer space, ultimate muscle, you're gonna go to the human race, ultimate muscle. That from then on, I was hooked. I was hooked from that first opening song, because it was just incredible. Like, I've never seen anything like it. Like you were saying, it's like these cartoons, and like he was developing, and like I think you educated me today. It was a gangman guy at the beginning, but I just loved for the fact that it was comedy, but also like action. It had these characters, these cool characters. You had like Kevin Mask, you obviously had like Kid Muscle. You had like all these, like that German guy. Remember that German guy? Shade, yeah. He went from all that different arc that they had and all these different people.
It's called the Red Rain of Pain.
And the finishing moves, and like I think I was a big wrestling fan before, so this was like the perfect mix of like all the things I loved. And like WWE, exactly, WWE. I was like, oh man. So ever since then, I've loved anime, and I talk about anime a lot on this podcast because it's something that's deeply close to my heart. And I know that you love it too. So actually, moving on, having both established we both love anime, I have some anime questions for you. Cool. Deep anime questions. So if you want to hold on to that. Okay, and if you could just put the mic here a little bit, because I want you to hold on to it, but I want to ask you some questions about which animes you prefer out of those two. Sure. First is JJK versus Chainsaw Man. Tell me which one you prefer and why.
Okay. For the first one, I'm going to say I like both.
You can't. You have to pick one. I know. Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. On a serious level.
Yes.
JJK.
Go on.
Reason why? Reminds me of Bleach. Domain expansion, Bankai, Shikai, curse techniques, right? It just reminds me of that Bleach vibe, though. When I first read it, the manga in 2018, because I remember I read the first chapter on the Shonen Jump app when it came out. I was like, this is full on Bleach vibes. Like, I'm vibing with this. Like, Yuji's like Ichigo. Like, damn, I'm vibing with this. So, even though I love Chainsaw Man as equally as much, JJK just reminded me of that old time when I got into Bleach back in 2006, and then watching the anime years ago, and then binging it when I was really, really young, when I was 13, 14. So it just gave me that Bleach vibe again.
Okay, so tell me why you like Chainsaw Man, because I know you also like that. I'm not going to be mean.
Chainsaw Man, right. Chainsaw Man, right. I liked it because it reminded me a lot of Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino. Okay, now, hot take. I don't like the guy that much. But the movies that I do like is Kill Bill and Reservoir Dogs. One of my favorite films from him. To date, okay? And Django Unchained, that's another good one. So, it reminded me a lot of his movies like Kill Bill. It just gave me a lot of Kill Bill vibes when I read it. So I was like, damn. 97 chapters. Denji's going through multiple things. Sort of like what the bride has to go through. So it just reminds me of the bride's journey. When I think of Chainsaw Man, I think of, Denji's going through what the bride's going through. All the trauma and everything. And he has to find his purpose in the world. Sort of like what the bride does with revenge. And Markima's my favorite character because he's such a deep... Because he was actually inspired by Foolie Cooley, actually. With that story of the anime. So, it really reminded me a lot of those older animes like Neos Javelin and all those ones, and the aesthetic of it as well.
I agree. I'd go off that. I think to answer my own question, I'm not going to be mean. I'll answer these questions myself. Even though I love JJK, I would say Chainsaw Man. Okay. And I think I'll be full on honest. I've not finished JJK, so that's a very big reason why I'm choosing JJK. Because I'm choosing Chainsaw Man, sorry. Because I'm not finished. I'm not caught up to date. I'm where the anime is. Obviously, the manga's still continuing.
Nearly 20 volumes.
Nearly 20. Incredible.
Part 2.
It's incredible. But yeah, I love Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man to me was such a unique manga. It was like it kind of separated himself because I've seen Fire Punch, and Fire Punch was one of my favorite mangas before. It was so different, so crazy, so philosophical. But like Chainsaw Man took it to another level, but also maintained its ability to be like
back and Goodbye Eri too.
Literally,
I've read Fujimoto's one-shots.
Yeah.
And all his work.
Yeah.
I can see why people like him because the philosophical stuff and the symbolism is just on another level.
And it's crazy, and he's able to combine.
It reminds me of Vagabond. Very subtle and simplistic stuff. You won't get it the first time.
You gotta read it again.
But when you read it again, you're like, oh, I get this now.
And the paneling and the ability to tell the story and like all these things. So that's why I chose Chainsaw Man. Yeah. But the next one, let's keep going. Yeah. So next one is JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, all of them, or Attack on Titan, all of the other seasons.
Okay. It's an easy pick. JoJo. Look. I'm not... Okay.
I'm going to argue here. Go on.
Okay. So, history with me. Yeah. I did read the manga years ago when it was still... The anime was still a thing. I only like it because there's different protagonists and my brother used to watch the anime. He's a big JoJo fan. So...
JoJo's incredible.
JoJo... Araki he's a beast.
It's actual genius.
Bro, every part feels unique from each other. I mean, I don't like part 1 that much, but you can see the seeds as his writing gets better and better and better. It kind of reminds me of early Shaman King, right? With the slow progression, you see the ideas seep in here and there, and then it expands into its whole philosophy, characters going through places like Jotaro is basically going through what Asakura's going through, and Shaman King, atonement. Finding peace in himself and also mastering the importance of being a king of the shamans, right? In a world that is so chaotic and everything. So I would pick JoJo's for that one.
I mean, I can't disagree with what you just said. The only difference I would say is that I personally believe Attack on Titan anime is probably the best anime ever made. I think from season 1 to 3 and from to 4, 3 part 2. It's 5 now, yeah, exactly, because it made a movie. But honestly, Attack on Titan, I think it has everything an anime could wish for.
I mean,
Fight scenes.
To be honest, with Attack on Titan, right? I'm not the biggest fan of Attack on Titan.
No.
But
Brother.
I respect Ishiyama's like writing. But for me, maybe it's just the halfway point. I just didn't vibe with that much. I like the ending though. There's so many things you can get from it. But when I read it, I felt like it wasn't that type of story, especially when Eren turned
villain, basically.
Turned villain.
Yeah.
And then I can understand why Ishiyama did it. But for me, it just felt off. We know much about Eren, and the slow downfall, but was it earned?
I think that's subjective for everyone, right? Because I think the Eren's character development, to give the other perspective, right? I think Eren's character development from seeing what he was as a kid and when he goes older, it's like when it switches, you go, oh, it was always there. There was seeds of that kid. Yeah. We just saw it as like, oh, he's just a little kid. He was saying he's going to kill everyone at like 13 years old. And when he gets older, you can see more and more people using him, people like abusing him, and he changes that.
I understand the appreciation of Attack on Titan. I understand the hype. I read the manga when it first came out. Yeah. I was intrigued when its first few chapters came out. It's only the halfway point. I felt like Ishiyama, he knew what he wanted to do, but he kind of forgotten the other characters. Like the other characters were kind of sidelined. They were more interesting.
That's fair. That's a fair criticism.
Like History, especially Mikasa, Armin especially,
you're right.
And then Connie and all those guys. Fascinating characters in their own right, and they were just shafted because Eren got more of the focus. I'm not trying to say Attack on Titan's bad. I like it because I've read the manga multiple times. It's just the way Ishiyama handled his characters, and he put them in certain situations, and then he just completely forgot about them. And it just became the Eren screaming show, kind of.
But fair enough.
With Levi, he got all the development regardless of happening.
Everything was right, bro. Everything was right. Levi was like a badass character, and I completely agree with you. But okay, next one. Yeah. Tokyo Ghoul or Mob Psycho 100?
Easy.
Go on.
Mob Psycho.
Why? Why do you say that?
Not because One Punch Man, obviously, but such a unique story. Mental health struggle. Shingo with the anxiety and everything, coming to terms with his power, his brother learning psychic powers. Such a fun story. It's not even a show. Well, it is a shonen.
It's more deep than a
shonen. But it's a slice of life, but adding shonen stuff to it. But it's not the core focus. I think you just like the fact that it covers Shingo's anxiety, and also he has a love interest, which throughout the manga, if you've read the whole thing, you see Shingo getting confidence, and then he gets rejected, and he's like, you know what? At least I've done it, and that's the ending of the story. And you're just like, Riga's like, you know. There'll be other girls out there in the world. I mean, Regan's character is just... He's a fraud, but you know what?
He's a good guy.
You love it.
He's a good guy.
He's doing it not only for himself, but also to help Mob become a better person.
Yeah.
People always hate Regan because he's like, he's a bit of a dick. But he does care about Mob. He wants what's best for him because he went through a similar thing. Because if you watch the whole anime in its entirety, you would know Regan didn't want to do this. He kind of just did it because he wanted to make a life for himself, and he also wanted to go against his parents and stuff. But he doesn't want Mob to go through similar things like he did. And that's the whole point with Mob Psycho.
I love that. And I actually agree. So next one. This is probably a little bit harder. So we have Fullmetal Alchemist, Brotherhood, or Vinland Saga.
I love them both.
I know.
But as much as I love Vinland Saga, we gotta go with the Full Metal. First off, the anime opening of the 2003 anime Melissa. My God.
Bro.
Something else.
How does it go again?
Kikimoke no hamashimite omakimi no iwoku wo Hamashimito.
I'm sorry, this is so cool.
Good, yeah.
That's so cool. But yeah, go on. Why Fullmetal Alchemist?
One of the few mangas I read, like I read in the local library, it was the one manga I followed religiously. And I watched the anime, and I really, really engaged with it a lot. And Brotherhood was, while it was good...
Come on, bro. Brotherhood's better.
Brotherhood, okay. I'll give you this. Fullmetal Alchemist is really good. Its adaptations are just on another level, okay? Brotherhood expands.
Exactly.
It expands the source material to another level.
And the animation in Brotherhood, because it's a little bit more updated than the other one,
Bro.
just takes it to another level.
It's by Studio Bones.
Which is like, Bones is like, I think one of the best studios, I think.
Bro. The same people that did My Hero, same people that did Soul Eater, which is full on vibes in itself.
Literally, incredible.
Hey, incredible. Something else.
Yes.
Something else.
Yeah.
But that's what I'll pick, Full Metal.
Full Metal. I mean, we could spend a whole episode in each one of these, and we talked about doing this, but we're actually going to run through these quickly because we want to get to some other ones. So, next one, Samurai Champloo or Cowboy Bebop?
To be honest, I used to hate Cowboy Bebop for a long time. I never used to like it. Read the manga, thought it was garbage. I'm doing this for the pod, okay?
Fine, bro.
Don't criticize me.
I'm not criticizing you. I'm interested. I'm just fascinated.
But I don't like Samurai Champloo either, but if I can pick one, Samurai Champloo.
Really? Why don't you like... Have you seen the anime for both?
I've seen both. Yes.
Okay, what... Tell me which one you prefer, and also it's your Samurai Champloo, but why don't you like them?
Okay. So the reason why I didn't like Samurai Champloo, it was very slow. It takes a long time to get to the whole point. But listen, it's a journey. But I didn't understand those things back then when I was watching anime.
That's very fair. That's okay, fine.
Because I grew up with Bleach and Dragon Ball. When I grew up,
next episode,
when I was, if you were a kid like me who grew up with Naruto, Dragon Ball, and all that, you expected that.
Yes.
But when I read Champloo, I was like, what is this nonsense?
Yeah.
But as I grew older, I started to appreciate it. And if you don't know the Boondocks, which takes heavy inspiration of Champloo from its music and its animation, okay, I started to realize, okay, this is something.
This is gold, yeah.
But before I even watched Champloo, I remember listening to the soundtrack. I didn't even know where it was from. And it's only when I vibed with the music and I saw it where it came from, I was like, you know what? This anime's got good stuff. I would have preferred Afro Samurai, but that's even a better version of what it was from Samurai Champloo.
Ooh, okay. So I'll go off. But the reason Afro Samurai is not in there because I've not seen Afro Samurai, but I've seen both these two, and I'm telling you, like, I love both of them. I love Samurai Champloo because, like you said, the music is on another level. I love the whole story too. Those three, and they just go on a journey, and then obviously when they separate.
Samurai Champloo is basically Kanye West's Heartless album.
Literally,
it's basically that.
It's like, and I think that's why it's so influential because like Kanye West's Heartless album is the most influential album I think we speak about. Oh, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. That's the next one. Next one. So last one we have on here, probably the hardest one, but Dragon Ball or Bleach.
Dragon Ball shouldn't even been on this list. Just saying.
Go on.
But if I have to pick, we gotta go with Bleach. I'm only excluding Dragon Ball because I like it so much, just as equally as Bleach. But Bleach, it got me into poetry. Coolest characters. The best soundtrack in anime at the time, okay? Even with the latest anime, okay? With the third core. Which is banging, by the way.
I've not seen it. I need to watch it.
Okay. So, it introduced me to a lot of its music. I developed a lot of my anime crosses from that anime, believe it or not. Orihime, good lord. I tell you. She was my crush back then when I watched it, okay?
Yeah.
Nell.
Who's your favorite Bleach character?
Oh, it's so hard.
I know.
If you want my favorite female character in its entirety, Nell. Nell 2. 100% favorite female character. If we're talking about favorite male character, Urahara Kisuke. He was just full on vibes, okay? The hat. The guy's mysterious. When he's serious, okay? He's serious, alright? And his Shikai was so cool. Come on.
Bro, that's so many cool characters. Zanpakuto, like Kenpachi, like all of the characters are insane.
Alright, okay, you know what? Just to be fair, I'll give you a list of my top 5 favorite male.
Go on.
Okay. Urahara's number 1. Injigo, main character. Bukiya, yes, Bukiya.
Which one's Bukiya again?
Rukia's brother.
Okay, yeah.
Then we have Toshiro Hitsugaya, the Ice Sunbokto Zabimaru book. No, not Zabimaru, Hirimaru. And then the 5th one, this is a tough one.
Kenpachi, you know Kenpachi's not on your list? He's the most badass.
I know. And then you've got the Vizards.
Ooh, okay.
Love is one of my favorite characters from the Visors.
Mm-hmm.
He's wearing glasses, bro. He's got a Tengu Maru sword. Like, what is this? I could have picked Kuriaku, but
Yeah. What do you think about Aizen as a villain?
he's the one that's inspired Kenjaku from JJK. So you can't, like, Aizen is a really, really cool villain, especially when you go deep into the manga, which I won't spoil.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things in Bleach make sense as to why he does the things he does. So it really puts in perspective. And this is where I got into serious villains with complex themes, and Kubo was really, really smart with it, man. Like, he was on another level, so Aizen's a good villain.
I think, dude, like, honestly, like, the more you speak, the more I know that we have to do another one of these just completely focused on anime and, like, characters and villains, because I know you could go so much more, and I know you're holding back, so thank you so much for that. But, okay, cool. Next one. Moving on from anime into mangas, I want you to quickly just rank these kind of, these mangas that I have here. So first we got Air Gear, first we got Vagabond, then Berserk, then One Piece, then D Grey Man. Rank them and tell me why you put them in order.
Number one is Air Gear, right? As I mentioned in one of my poems, it got me into fashion. It got me into, like, clothing and things, hip hop, the soundtracks that I sent you over. Really nice vibes. And it really taught, it was the first manga that I've read that focused on disabled characters and actually making them important. Like Zoro Takanuchi, a disabled villain, being badass as hell, but also really, really cool. And I really like how O Great conveys that. I grew up with this manga. I've read it so many times. Like, this is just full on vibes. You love it. Next one, Vagabond. Now, if you read Slam Dunk, you read Slam Dunk. You go from the art evolution from Slam Dunk to this.
And even the story changed.
Even the story,
That's
okay?
incredible.
Like, look, I read Vagabond, like, later in my life. Okay, like, I read Vagabond first before Slam Dunk. So when you go from Slam Dunk, you're like, okay, basketball manga, Michael Jordan. Okay, cool. I like that. But Vagabond is like, let's take Masashi's life and just make it so crazy.
Literally like a samurai, like going through different phases of his
What
life.
makes it funny about the Masashi thing? That's what inspired Star Wars, okay? When you're going from the philosophy and Darth Vader doing his thing and the Force and the concepts, all of it came from that. And Vagabond takes these things, like from Star Wars and things, and in no way just like, it's not even about Masashi's story, because it's about different people and different characters, like Koshiro and things. And I've read it so many times. It's like, the only downside is that the manga's on hiatus, and you just want more. And I love it for that. Next thing, Berserk.
Yes.
Memora, rest in peace. When he passed away, man.
It was sad time, wasn't it?
2020. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Keep going.
It was crazy, but Vagabond, Berserk, sorry. I just love it. I can't really describe why I put Berserk, but it's just a cool manga.
I know, it's just such a deep manga too, yeah.
The thing is with Berserk, there's so many things I could say, but all I can say, why it's on the list, it's on another level, okay?
Then One Piece? One Piece and The Grey Man, last two.
Okay, so I know Kieran, he's going to criticize me why I'm putting it on number 4.
I will criticize you, but I'm not going to do that today.
Okay.
I'll do that later.
One Piece is my favorite manga, okay? The only reason why I criticize it the way I do is because I love the series too much. I used to be a One Piece addict. Like, I'm telling you. I used to support One Piece all the time. Usopp's my favorite, okay? Sanji, swagger, okay? He's better than Zoro. I'm only saying this on the podcast because, you know.
Okay, cool. You get the engagement.
Get the engagement going. But in all seriousness,
Yes.
One Piece is definitely, it's a very cool story.
Yes.
Freedom, embodiment, discrimination, like, we all went through what the One Piece characters went through in some capacity in our life, and I'm so grateful for One Piece. I made a lot of friends from it. The soundtrack's really good. Angry, that soundtrack. Emotional, made me cry so many times. But One Piece, it reminds me of Dragon Ball a lot. I can't really hate it too much because I can understand why modern shonen standards, but One Piece will always be the fun one.
And then D Grey Man, last one.
Halloween vibes, night before Christmas. You love those things. I just love the story. Who is Alan Walker? Who is the Earl of the Millennium? Who are these people? Like, there's so many. It feels like a mystery manga, but it isn't. It's an aspect of it. But you want to know about the world. There's so many things you want to know about the world, but you don't. And every chapter, you're just learning more about Hoshino's process and like her way of introducing the world in this setting that is in Victorian but manga, but also,
like,
you know, but it's one of those mangas I read religiously, and chapters come out quarterly now, unfortunately. But I love that series. It's one of the series I personally connect with a lot, and I love the characters. Lan Li, cool character female. Honestly, with the boots, damn, okay. We're vibing now.
Let me get away from before you start going crazy about us over Aussie. But thank you so much. I know that was hard because like to talk about quickly about your favorite things, especially like anime, is very difficult. And like 100%, we will have another full episode just talking about anime because I know you know so much. You have like an encyclopedic memory of all these things, the soundtrack and all these things. We'll go very much into depth. But to wrap this up, and thank you so much for today. This has been an amazing episode.
Cool.
Thank you so much for being here. I wanted to finish off with a question I always ask people. It's like, where do you derive hope? In the world that we live in currently, there seems to be a lot of negativity, but I want to always promote the positivity in the world. So where do you derive hope in the world currently?
Okay, hope and the meaning of life. Let's blend both of those questions together, shall we?
Let's do that. Go on.
Hope. How do you perceive hope? What is hope itself? In my opinion, hope to me is about keep going forward. Keeping going, even though the future may be bleak, there'll still be a chance you maybe achieve those opportunities that you want to do. As in poetry terms, hope is like a beacon. And if you want to keep that beacon staying, you want to stand tall on that beacon, you got to keep going, walking up those stairs. That's how life goes, man. The meaning of life is how you perceive it, like a storybook, like I said. How many pages, how old you grow, and the wisdom you bring to people, that's your story.
Amazing.
And that's how it is.
And the meaning of life for you? When you look up into the stars, and you just look at everything around us, and we are floating rock on a floating rock in space, what is the meaning of life for you?
The meaning of life is always, for me, my story ain't over until it ceases to exist. And that's my story. My story is a book. All these adventures and conversations I'm having with you, or with Kieran, or anybody else in my family, there's always a story to be told. We're on the page 27, page something, and I'm talking to you about this podcast. And this page has already been filled. It's been written with notes. And my meaning of life is, with this podcast, and I'm being a fan of it myself, the meaning of life is about connecting with people and understanding what life means to you. And you're still growing and developing, but for me right now, the meaning of life is what you make of it. How do you want to shape your story? How do you want to shape your life? How do you want to be the best person you can be in God's, holy world?
That's beautiful, bro.
God is life. God is eternal. God wants you to decide, how do you want to define life? I may give you all these principles, but you decide how you interpret them, how you go about it. I think that's the importance of meaning of life. I know it's a bit religious here and there.
Bro, that's beautiful. It's beautiful, man.
That's how I see it.
It's beautiful. And thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for today. It's been a fantastic episode, spanning. I know you're a fan, but thank you so much for being on here, man. Like, this has been so amazing, like, spanning poetry and anime and just like everything else that we talked about today, and love and meaning of life and all these things. I'm so grateful to have met you. I'm so grateful that you're here. I'm so grateful that you do this with me. To end it, I always give the guests an opportunity to ask me a question. So if there's any question you've always wanted to ask me, this is your chance.
Okay. I've always wanted to do it because I've watched your podcast religiously. The one question I wanted to ask you, deep question.
Of course.
What is poetry meaning to you? How has it influenced you in your 26 years, or now 27 years of life? And how will it evolve in the future? Where do I see Jeff the poet in 5-6 years from now? Will he become the best poet or the best version he can be? Or will he still work the building blocks like Legos in order to achieve the best poetry he wants to make?
Thank you for that question. That is amazing question. I've always wanted someone to ask me about poetry. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So give you a proper answer. Give me a second to really think about this. What does poetry mean to me? To me, poetry is a part of myself that I never want to let go. A part of myself that I never want to lose. It's the human aspect to me, right? The world we live in is chaotic, and you go through life trying to figure out what you're going to be and all these things about identity and all these things. But for me, when I started to find who I was, when I started to find the courage and the motivation and the, go past the struggle, it started poetry. And so, like, no matter how big I get, that opportunity, that ability to be vulnerable, which what poetry allows me to be, let go of the mask. That is something I always wanted to keep. And so that's what poetry means to me. It means everything to me in a sense, because it allows me to be myself and my core. The personality that I've grown, the person I've become is all down to poetry, and allowing me to kind of fulfill that destiny that I always wanted to be. The person I always wanted to be, right? I could only have gotten here through the stepping stones of poetry. Really looking at myself and being honest and being, vulnerable in all these different terms and, cool and all these kind of embodied emotions put into that thing. That's what poetry allows them to be. And what do I see going in 5-10 years? Bro, I have no idea. And that's the beauty of it. Everything in my life I can plan. But with poetry, it's literally like, what do I feel like doing? How can I express this better? How can I connect to people? I feel like I can connect to other people by speaking to them like this, but poetry is a way for me to connect to myself. And by connecting to myself, I can give other people. I had a thought today, and so I'll share it with you, right? I was walking in and I was thinking, and this is why poetry is so important to me. And I was like, I feel like I'm at that age, right, where I can, like Voldemort, I connect to my friends by giving pieces of my soul. And that's, to me, that's like, only poetry can make me think like that. Only poetry can get me to look at my surroundings and my environment and be like, man, like Voldemort, I want to give a piece of my soul to my friends.
Soul from Soul Eater with the piano metaphor, isn't it?
Literally, bro, literally. And it's like, see that understanding that we have about life and that we have about ourselves, that can only come from poetry. Yeah. And that's why that's such a big aspect of my life. And I will definitely still be putting the building blocks. Do I want to be the best poet of all time? I don't know. To me, that's a big thing. But I know that when I'm gone, when it all ends and the darkness comes for me, the things that will remain is the things that I said, the things that I did, how I was expressed. Bare your soul for all to see, to live for eternity. That's something I love from poetry. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Bro, thank you so much for doing this. I respect you so much, brother. Thank you so much for doing this.
Good.
Thank you so much for watching.
Welcome.
It's been an amazing episode.
Thank you for watching.
And I'll see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.